Okay, so there's a huge political firestorm brewing in Washington. And get this, it's not about some big policy debate or a new law. It's about a pen, or, well, a machine that uses a pen. Let's get into how one little signature is causing such a massive controversy. So, can a signature actually spark a constitutional crisis? I mean, it sounds a little dramatic, right? But that's exactly what's at the heart of this whole thing. We are talking about a fundamental challenge to presidential actions, and it all comes down to how they were signed. The stakes, they're incredibly high.
All right, so what exactly are we talking about here? What is this thing? It's called an Autopen. You have to remember, as the government got bigger, so did the mountain of paperwork. This machine became a pretty standard tool to deal with it all. It's not some new secret device. Presidents from both parties have been using these things for decades to sign all sorts of stuff.
But what was once just a standard piece of office equipment is now at the center of a really serious accusation from House Oversight Republicans against former President Joe Biden. And we're not just talking about some press release here. No, they dropped a massive 100-page report laying out their entire case against how the former president used this device. So let's break down what's actually in this report. And this is where it gets pretty wild. The core of their argument is that then President Biden was suffering from mental decline. They're claiming that because of this, he might not have even known what his staff was signing in his name. They're alleging a cover-up by his aides and arguing that any action signed this way, without clear written consent, should be considered totally legally void. And they didn't just stop with the report. As you can see from this quote, Committee Chair James Comer officially asked the Department of Justice, which is now under the Trump administration, to launch a full-blown investigation into all of this. So what's got them so fired up? Well, the report really zeroes in on a bunch of high-profile pardons Biden made right before he left office. We're talking about pardons for family members, like his son Hunter and his siblings, but also for key political figures like Dr. Fauci, General Milley, and Adam Schiff. People Republicans argue could be targets for the new administration. Okay, so that's the Republican side of the argument. But as you can imagine, that is not the end of the story. The former president's team and Democrats in Congress, well, they have a whole lot to say about this. And they are not holding back. The top Democrat on the committee, Representative Robert Garcia, basically called the whole thing a sham investigation. He said that witnesses actually testified that Biden was completely in charge and personally authorized every single use of that Autopen. And then you have this, straight from the source. Former President Biden himself came out with this statement, just flat out denying everything. He says he made the decisions, all of them, and calls any idea that he wasn't in control ridiculous and false. So this really sums up the two completely different realities we're looking at here. On one side, you've got Republicans saying these actions were illegitimate, a result of cognitive decline and a staff cover-up. And on the other, you have Democrats firing back that the investigation is baseless, a political distraction, and nothing more than political retribution. To really get what's going on, you kind of have to pull the camera back and look at the bigger picture. Because the timing of all this, yeah, that's everything. This timeline really helps lay it all out. You know, earlier this year, you had President Trump on Truth Social pushing his Attorney General to investigate his political opponents. Then, in the last few weeks, you see the DOJ actually bringing cases against some of those critics. And then, boom, this report lands, pushing that same DOJ to go after Biden. And there's even more context that's super important here. Critics are quick to point out that this whole report was released right in the middle of a government shutdown. And they also make the point that, hey, lots of presidents, including President Trump himself, have used an Autopen. So the big question they're asking is, why is this suddenly a crisis now? So this all leads to the million-dollar question, right? What happens now? Does this report actually have any teeth? Can it really change anything? Okay, first things first, let's talk about what a congressional committee can and can't do. Legally speaking, a House committee can investigate all day long, but they have absolutely zero constitutional power to just declare a presidential action null and void. That's just not how our system of government works. But, and this is a big but, that doesn't mean the report is just going to disappear. The current Attorney General, Pam Bondi, has already come out and said her team is looking into it, calling the new information extremely helpful. So the Department of Justice is definitely taking this seriously. So where does this all go from here? Well, a few things could happen. First, that DOJ review is going to move forward. Second, this report could become the playbook, the legal basis for future lawsuits trying to overturn Biden's pardons or orders in court.
And you can bet, third, that this is going to be a political football for a long, long time.
And all of this really boils down to one massive fundamental question. Where do you draw the line between legitimate government oversight and straight-up political warfare? Is this Congress doing its job of checking executive power, or is it the weaponization of government for political payback? That, right there, is the debate at the very center of this whole thing. And you can be sure we'll be watching to see how it plays out.